So as I always say, sales is one of the most important skills to learn as a entrepreneur or just anyone trying to start a business, right? So figured I'd make this video on the basics of sales that have actually helped me out in my business. I've learned a ton over the past couple years, with books, mentors, YouTube videos, just trying to find the best way to learn sales so I can scale my video business. So there's been a lot that's just been fluff, and there's been, some very specific things that have really helped me out. So that's what I want to cover in this video, the sales advice that got me to $12,000 per month as a videographer. So once I've earned your trust, top link in the description if you want one-on-one coaching. Let's jump right into it. So today we'll be covering the basics of sales. Like I said, some of the stuff that I've learned over the past couple of years, understanding the call structure, the discovery call, crafting a compelling offer, closing the deal with confidence, and some general tips for mastering sales. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So the basics of sales. So at the end of the day, your goal, when you're, creating videos, your goal is to get your client from point A to point B. Okay, your videos are just the bridge to that gap. Now you need to understand this. This is just the basics of sales. Clients are not buying your videos because they just like how it looks, right? That's a common misconception. Like beginner, like new videographers think that they realize it at the end of the day if you put it like this, but when they're filming it, a lot of times, we're thinking, hey, they just want videos for the sake of videos. They don't. They're buying videos to achieve a specific goal, to achieve a specific outcome, right? So understanding that your videos are just the bridge to that gap. They're starting at point A, right? A starting point, and they're trying to get to a specific goal with your videos. So your goal is just to solve their problems with videos, and you need to communicate how you can do that, right? That's what you're going to be doing in sales, in your sales calls. You're just communicating, you're helping them to see how your videos can take them from point A to point B. That's how you're going to be able to charge them higher prices. Okay, so now let's understand the call structure a little bit. So this call structure works really well specifically for videography, right? So the reason it works is because you can understand their A point and their B point, and then you pitch a very specific video strategy that's going to help them get to point B, right? That's going to help them reach their goals. So the discovery call right here, that's literally just to understand the client's needs and to qualify them. So what do I mean by that? Well, first off, to understand their needs, you're basically understanding their A point, where they're at in their business, where they need help, where they're trying to go. You're figuring all that out in the discovery call before you're even selling them anything, before you're even pitching them anything. So you're just there to understand their client, the needs of the client, and you're also there to qualify them, right? So by doing this, if you don't qualify them, you're going to be working with all these other, brands who maybe don't have budget, right? That you're qualifying them, so you're not, doing all this work down the road, and they're not even qualified and they don't have the budget. So you want to make sure you understand what they need, and you also want to qualify them, so you are working with people who have enough budget, because you don't want to be working with people who just can't afford your services, right? Pretty simple. So the reason this works so well, like I said, you can understand everything about them, and then you can create a specific strategy to help them. And that's what the strategy call does. So after you've done the discovery call, you figured out everything about their A point, their B point, their budget, and you've qualified them, then you can create a specific content strategy that's going to help them reach their goals, right? That's the strategy call. So trying to do all of this in one call is not going to work, because you'll try to understand their needs, then you'll try to think of a content strategy right off the bat, and it's not really going to work. So your clients, your prospects will respect you for this, because you've gone and understood what they're trying to do with videos, and you're creating a very specific content strategy that's going to align with their goals. And that's what they're looking for. Like I said, your clients don't care about how the videos look. At the end of the day, they care about achieving their specific goals with videos. So that's how you're going to do it. You're going to understand what they want. It's like the saying, give Susie what Susie wants for lunch, right? You don't want to just guess what she wants. You go up and ask her, what do you want for lunch? And then you go make that, right? Same concept here. You're going to figure out what they want, what their goals are. then you're going to go pitch the ideas in a second call. Does that make sense? So that's the basics of the calls. So talking a little bit more on the discovery call, first off, you just want to frame the call so the prospect knows what to expect. So failing to do this is going to be a huge waste of time. I've done this a lot when I first started off, and like I said, it was a waste of time, and there's just no outcome. So what is framing? Well, basically framing is going to be setting the frame for the call. So if you don't give them an idea of what this call is, what the structure is, they don't know what they're doing. So it's just going to go all over the place. You'll be talking about your friend John, and then you'll be talking about the market, and like it's going to be an unstructured mess. So by framing the call, you set a very specific agenda, and you're talking about a very specific topic, right? You're in control of the call. You framed it so they know what to expect. Okay. Next, you want to go into specifically the discovery call with the mindset that I'm not here to sell. I'm literally just here to better understand their current situation. By doing this, you're not going to be like trying to explain how your videos will help them, why you're the best option, how you have the cheapest prices. No, you're just here to understand their situation. Like I said, by doing this, you can figure out their A point and their B point, and you can create a video strategy to help them reach their goals. Hopefully this is making sense. So like I said, when you're going into the discovery call, you're just trying to figure out everything about them, their current situation, their desired situation, their budget. Ask them questions about, their company so you can better understand them and better create a content strategy that's going to help them reach their goals. So like I said, go into it with the mindset, I'm not here to sell anything, because when you go into a sales call like trying to make a sale, you end up sounding needy, and it is pathetic. People don't like buying from someone who's just pushing for a sale, who's going hard for the sale. Like the discovery call specifically, you're just there to understand their current situation, right? You're just trying to understand them better. Next is to follow a script/framework even on your 1,000th call, right? So I say that because, some people, they might follow a script for a little bit and then they just drop it off. Like this is something you should always be using. The reason behind that is because you want a clear structure every single call, so you have the data, so you can create the strategy. Does that make sense? So by following a script, you're going to get specific answers to your questions, and you'll take that data that you just got from the discovery call, and you'll create a very specific strategy for the next call, the strategy call. That's where you're going to pitch the ideas. Okay. So like I said, follow a script and framework even on your 1,000th call. You'll always be doing that. It's just going to give you a general structure that you can follow, and you'll get the right questions answered. That way you can, go back and hold them accountable to things that they actually said. Let's say they say they're ready to start a project in the discovery call, and then they say, well, we need a lot of time to think about it. On the strategy call, well, then you have what they said. You can be like, hey, but you said you want to start today. What changed? Stuff like that. So you'll have the right questions that's going to allow you to guide the process, and you're going to have a clear strategy on, how you're actually going to help them reach their goals. Okay. Next is to ask leading questions and dig deeper. Basically, you just want to get them to talk. So specifically on the discovery call, when you're trying to figure out everything about them, you want them to do most of the talking. So when you ask just regular questions that just get like a yes/no response, that's not really going to lead to them opening up and sharing about their business. So when you ask leading questions like, what do you mean by, or tell me more about, stuff like that, that's going to get them to talk, and it's going to get them to open up. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. Okay. So that roughly covers the discovery call. Like I said, big thing here is you're just going into this call trying to understand their situation better. That's it. You're not trying to sell anything. If you think they're a good fit at the end of this call, you'll create a content strategy, and you'll pitch that to them on a strategy call, right? So next is creating a compelling offer. So you want to basically communicate what makes you unique and qualified, because at the end of the day, there's lots of videographers out there. I'm sure you have friends who are videographers. There's videographers everywhere. So you really have to be unique, and you have to stand out from the competition. Give them a reason to actually work with you instead of just the cheapest option out there. So a lot of times that could be, following this framework, as in you do a discovery call, a strategy call. By doing that, you understand their A point and you create a very specific content strategy that's aligned with their goals. That's going to make you unique. A lot of videographers, they just shoot their prices over email and expect to get the client, and the client doesn't really know like what these videos are actually going to do for them. Like maybe they need, website sales, but the videographer just randomly pitched them Instagram Reels. That has nothing to do with their goal. So you want to, communicate what makes you unique, what makes you qualified to do this, and why you're actually different from all the other videographers. Next is to communicate the value and give them a reason to show up to the next call. So in the discovery call, strategy call framework, when you're figuring out their current situation, at the end of that call, you're basically going to tell them, look, I have a good understanding of your current situation. At this point, I'm just going to create a strategy based on what you told me for our next call, right? So at that point, you want to make sure there's a little bit of curiosity and there's actually a reason for them to show up to the next call. So maybe that could be, they want to see the strategy. So make sure they have a reason to show up to the strategy call. If they're just bored and they're not really interested, you need to, adjust your call so you can make sure that they are interested, right? Get them interested so they will show up to the next call so you can pitch them the strategies. Lastly is just help them to understand that this is the best course of action, right? If they aren't convinced, that's on you, not them. So I hear a lot of videographers say like, yeah, the market, they're old, they don't see the value in video, or all these excuses, like trying to put it on the client. But at the end of the day, if they're not convinced, that's on you. You haven't convinced them. You haven't, helped them to understand why videos are actually a good fit for them and why it's actually the best course of action. Because at the end of the day, video marketing is one of the most powerful tools out there. It's a great way to market. And when you can link the videos to their goals, there's so much money to be made. So yeah, that covers it for crafting a compelling offer. Next is closing the deal with confidence. So this is more like the pitching strategy. So first off, let's talk objection handling. So objection handling is something you're always going to have to do in general. I almost never go into a sales call and don't face any objections. And it makes sense. People aren't just going to blindly buy from you without asking you some questions and like trying to make sure they're getting the best deal. That makes sense. So might as well just go into it expecting objections, be prepared for it, and you'll do a lot better. So as I say here, preparation plus feedback equals good objection handling. The reason behind that is because if you go into it prepared, but then also you give yourself feedback on what you can do better next time, you're going to learn from your mistakes, then you're going to get really good at objection handling. Let's say you get the same objection 5-10 times in a row, but you don't give yourself feedback, you're just going to keep on making the exact same mistakes. So like I said, preparation plus feedback. You can't skip the feedback part. That's how you're going to get good at this. So first off, just go into your calls expecting common objections. The price is too high. We need some time to think about it. We're not ready to move forward yet. Stuff like that. Those are basic objections that you're probably going to handle, or that you're probably going to face. So go into it prepared and expect to handle those objections. And yeah, like I say here, prepare common objections and practice them, right? And then lastly is just record your calls, track your objections, and be ready next time, right? So you can record your calls and then just go back and rewatch them, analyze them, figure out, what you could have said better, how you could have handled these objections better. What was your tonality like? How were you talking? Like all these things, you can always go back and watch your calls, and there's always something that you can actually learn from it. So, even with, outside of sales, like when you're just in general, feedback is so good. A lot of people say like practice makes perfect, but there's people who go through life doing the same exact thing over and over again, and they don't give themselves feedback. So it's always good to get out of that that cycle and just give yourself feedback, figure out what you can change to improve, right? Even for me, like with these YouTube videos, I'm sure I'll watch this back and find dozens of mistakes that I made, things that I can improve, right? I realize that, and that's how I actually get better, and that's how you'll get better with your sales calls. Just constantly give yourself feedback and improve it next time, okay? That covers objection handling. Now let's talk price pushback, because I can almost guarantee when you start charging higher prices, you're going to get some price pushback. If you're not getting price pushback, that means you're probably not charging enough, right? So, I'm talking to people who are actually going for, bigger money, 10, 15K projects, which at the end of the day, those are still pretty small projects compared to what a lot of people are doing. So, you are going to receive price pushback. So some ways to get around this. First off is to anchor high. So anchoring high is going to be, let's say they ask you how much is a video. By anchoring high, you could say, well, we do projects, from 10K all the way up to 100K. What are we talking? When they say on the low end, we're like, oh, we're looking more towards like 10K. Well, 10K might be the highest you've ever charged, but that seems low in comparison to 100K, right? So that's how anchoring high works. So you can learn more about that by reading Influence by Robert B. I don't even know how to pronounce that, but I read this one, a couple, probably like 6 months ago, and that really changed the way I did sales, right? So just anchoring high and like understanding the psychology behind, how humans work, really helps with sales. So that's really helped me. So, there's a lot of other things in this book that will help you out with sales. Anchoring high specifically is really important. So doing that in your sales calls is going to allow you to charge higher prices. Next is to link your videos to their goals. This is one of the biggest things actually, because if you haven't linked your videos to their goals, it's not gonna make sense why they're spending 10 grand plus on a specific video or a video strategy, right? Basically, you have to help them understand, like, look, this video is going to help you achieve, certain amount of money in return. So this video is like, the price you're putting into this video is really small in comparison. It's going to help you achieve this specific goal. Does that make sense? So like, always linking it back to their goals is going to help you with price pushback. So let's say they're like, oh, 20K is too expensive for a video project. We could be like, yeah, but even if this does half as well as we think, this is still going to get you 100K in sales. So that's nothing, right? So always linking it back to their goals. There's ways to get around this. And people are going to say, I guarantee it, you're probably thinking like, how do I know my videos are actually going to help them reach their goals? You don't. But it's actually super easy to convince them and get around this. Basically, you just put the responsibility back on them. Because honestly, you don't need to take responsibility for how well your videos actually perform if you have the best strategy out there. If you understand what videos to create to actually help them reach their goals, it's actually pretty simple. So you're just creating you convince them that, look, you have the best strategy, but at the end of the day, you're going to put responsibility on them. You're going to be like, at the end of the day, the videos might be, you might have the best videos out there, but if you have a bad marketing or a bad product or a bad service, the videos might not perform well. So a good analogy I like to use, it's like you could have a garbage old Nissan with an F1 racer racing a $2 million Bugatti with a 2-year-old, right? At the end of the day, it's actually going to be the F1 racer with the garbage car who actually wins, right? Because he knows how to drive. So that's the same thing here. You could have the best video, but if your marketing is bad or if your product is bad, we can't guarantee results. That's exactly what I tell them. So when you put it like that, when you tell that like type of story, it kind of it clicks and they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So always try to link it back to their goals. Okay. Next is you want to understand, look, you're not the cheapest option out there, and that's okay. If you're always just trying to be the cheapest option, it's just a race to the bottom. Oh, this guy can do it cheaper. This guy can do it cheaper. At the end of the day, you're not going to be charging anything, or you'll be paying to work with clients. So you're not the cheapest option, and people watching this, I don't want you to be the cheapest option. Your goal is to help them reach their goals with video, and you can't do that when you're the cheapest option, right? And it's easy to convince them of that. Like, look, if you want a cheaper video, you can go with someone else. But are you buying a video just to get a cheap video, or are you buying a video to achieve the goal that they just told you? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm trying to reach the goal, right? So you can convince them, look, the videos that we're creating are going to help you reach this goal. If you try to go lower, you're just going to be wasting money, right? Because it's not actually going to help you reach your goals. Then you're out that money that you put into this video that just isn't going to work. So these basic things, I could go a lot further into, price pushback, but like these three things have really helped me to raise my prices and actually convince, my clients that, look, this is actually worth it. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be working small projects for the sake of your client, right? You're genuinely helping them out by charging them more. Because when they can put more into a video project, you can create better videos and get them better results. When they have better results, they have more budgets that they can put back into videos, so you can create better videos, and it's just a cycle. So being the cheapest option not only does it hinder you, it hinders your clients, because you're not able to get them the results that they need with a low budget. That's just facts. So I want you to understand that. And if you're not convinced of this, neither will your client. So make sure you take some time to think about this. You're not the cheapest option. You are there, going all the way back up here, to get them from point A to point B. Your videos are just a bridge to that gap. That's why I say this is just the basics. Okay, I want you to understand this. So we talked price pushback. Now let's talk pitching. So this is gonna apply a lot to the strategy call, where you're presenting the ideas in like a pitch deck. So you'll have like 2 or 3 concepts or strategies that you're gonna pitch, and basically get them to decide which one they want. So some good books to help you out on this: Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. I think I pronounced that right. That's been a great one. It's basically teaching you like how to keep control of the situation, hold your frame, and actually bring confidence to a when you go to pitch. And it's just gonna allow you to close more deals instead of being like the needy guy who's just begging them to work with you, right? So that's a great one to read. Definitely would recommend that. Next thing here is just to bring confidence and avoid neediness, like I was saying. So like when you go into the call, like, look, basically this book is going to allow you to get clients to beg to work with you instead of you begging to work with them. It kind of flips the script, and it teaches you how to do that. So you're going to be going into these calls with confidence and avoiding, these situations where you're like, please, client, please work with me. You don't need to be doing that anymore. It's going to flip the script, where the clients are going to be begging you to work with you. Right. So next is to believe in the product. If you don't actually believe in the product, you're not actually going to convince the client that it's actually worth it, right? If you're not convinced, they definitely won't be. So you really need to take some time and realize that your videos are actually genuinely helping them out. They're genuinely helping them to reach their goals. So like I said, if you're not convinced, they definitely won't be. So really sit down, like I said, and just figure out, like, kind of understand, like I was saying earlier, these videos, you don't have to take all the responsibility for whether or not these actually perform. Really, what you do have to take responsibility for is whether or not you understand what their goals are, and whether or not you created the right strategy to help them reach their goals. But whether or not the videos perform, that's kind of on them. It comes down to their marketing. It comes down to whether or not they have a good product or service. A lot of it is on them. So make sure you just have, the confidence to charge these higher prices, and be convinced that your product is actually going to help them. Lastly is to get a definitive answer whether or not they're actually going to move forward with this. The worst thing that can happen, I've done this so many times. You get on a call, and then they're like, all right, I'll think about it. And you say, oh, okay. And you let them off the call. Do not do that. You want to get a definitive answer whether or not they're ready to move forward with it. Okay. The longer you wait, the colder the prospect will get. So like, let's say you let them off a call. The longer you wait, the less interested they're going to get. It's not hot. They're not thinking about it right then. They're going to get busy. They're going to get distracted. They'll slowly start to forget about it. And the more time you give them, the harder it's going to be to actually close them. So try to keep your calls very direct, get definitive answers, right? Like I said, going back to what I was saying earlier about framing, when you frame the call, you can tell them specifically what to expect from the call and get a very specific outcome. Otherwise, like I said, you'll be going all over the place, and you'll talk for, an hour and still get nothing out of it. You don't have a definitive answer, and they just say, okay, I want some time to think about it. And they'll probably never get back to you. Because, like I was saying, you're not competing with other videographers, honestly, at the end of the day. You're competing with their family. You're competing with the, Netflix, Instagram, everything going on in their business. It's all these other things that are pulling them away and taking up their attention. So you're competing with all the other things that are pulling their attention away. And that's why if you let them off a call without a clear, definitive answer, it's going to be so much harder to close them down the road because you'll just be doing all these endless follow-ups and it's just going to be harder to close them. So really get a definitive answer from them on this. Okay. Lastly, it's just some general tips for mastering sales calls. This is just stuff I've picked up along the way that's actually helped me out. So first off is just, like I said, really understand the importance of framing and structure. So you want to stay in control of the call and you want to ask the questions and not get off topic. You're going into this with a very clear structure. Discovery call to understand their situation, strategy call to pitch a strategy based off of what they said in the discovery call. Right? Go into it. You're in control. You're asking the questions. They're telling you about, like I was saying, their goals, their current situation, all that good stuff, right? But really keep control, keep the frame, and have a good structure so you're not going all over the place and not getting a clear, definitive answer. Next is a hype ritual. So basically, you want to bring the energy. If you go into a sales call and you're just down, you're monotone, like you're just boring, you don't want to do that. In a sales call, you want to have energy. You don't want to be like over the top, like, all right, Mr. Client, so I'm ready to work with you. You don't want to do that, but like you want to have energy. Clients can feel that. So, what I like to do is, listen to some music that hypes me up, maybe do some push-ups before. Basically just get in the mood, get some energy before the call. You can also stand up. I like to stand up when I'm doing my sales calls, specifically the discovery call since it's just on the phone, right? It's not even a Zoom call. So you can just stand up and even walk around while you're on the call. In general, I don't walk around because I'm taking notes on it. But yeah, if you just need more energy, like stand up, listen to some music before you start. Just try to have that energy. Next is to record, rewatch, and analyze your calls. I talked about this a little bit before. Basically, you always want to be, giving yourself constant feedback. So when you have these calls recorded, you can go back and figure out what you did wrong, where you can improve, and constantly be in that feedback loop so you can just keep improving. Okay. Bring confidence, know the framework / script, and don't sound like a robot. So basically, if you're following a script for your discovery call, but you've never read the script before, you're going to sound like a robot. You'll be like, let's say I'm reading this. Understand the importance of framing and structure. You are in control. Like, that's how some people sound when they first start off with their discovery call. So you want to make sure you know the scripts in and out, and it sounds like you're just talking to a friend. You don't want to be sounding like a robot. So, like I said, bring confidence, know the script and the framework, understand like what's next. Like you should have a general idea. Like I know, you're going to frame the call, you're going to understand their A point, you're going to understand their B point, you're going to pitch, you're going to have a budget, you're going to, set the next call, right? I know the framework and the script in and out. So understand that, don't sound like a robot. Pretty simple. And lastly, at the end of the day, don't stress it. Like I try to make it a game. Like every call is just an opportunity for me to, make the sale and genuinely help someone out. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But don't stress it. It's all a game at the end of the day. Try to have fun. Don't overthink it. Like, at the end of the day, it's just a sale. You can always find more of them. So that doesn't mean let people off too easily. That doesn't mean don't, genuinely try to make the sale. But at the end of the day, you are gonna, you're not gonna close every single client. So realize that and don't stress it. It can be very stressful, honestly. When I first started off, I was shaking. Like I was really nervous to do all these sales calls. I didn't have a structure. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what questions to ask. So, I was going into it really unprepared and really nervous. So I created this video to hopefully just help someone out who's just a beginner trying to learn a little bit about sales. So for me, this would have helped me a ton. And also, I forgot to put this in the slides. If you want like the discovery call framework script, you can join the school community. I'll link that below. you can also just shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll get that to you. So basically, I want to make sure you're prepared for your sales calls. If you have questions, like I said, feel free to reach out. I've got that script for you, as well as a ton of other resources in the school community. I will say the school community is fairly new since I just recently started it. There's not a ton going on, but there's still some resources in there currently. So I think that's it for this video. Like I said, hopefully this was helpful. Just created this one to hopefully help someone out who's in my shoes, 2 years ago. I didn't have these resources, and I hope this actually genuinely helped someone. Like I said, I've learned a ton from past coaches. I've learned a lot of this from coaches. I've learned this from a lot of books I've read, and like I said, there's a lot of fluff that just doesn't actually help. Like people talk about mirroring. Like if your prospect crosses their legs, you wait 10 seconds, then you cross your legs. Like right, like random things like that don't really actually help. So the stuff I mentioned here is just me thinking through what has actually helped me improve my sales, and this is genuinely the stuff that's helped. So yeah, that's it for this one. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.